everyone. Can you hear me okay? All right, excellent. So we have a quick little exercise to focus. It's the last talk of the day. I know you've been in here 8 hours of focus. We need to wind down a little bit. So I'm going to ask you very politely, very gently, to, if you can, close your laptops. Just turn your phones over for just a second. Everything you see here will be somewhere else. You can find it. I want this to be about us right now. And I'm going to make us do just a quiet little exercise, and it's quick. So I want you right now, in your spots, to think of 5 things that you can currently see. You don't have to say them, just think about them. 5 things you can see. Scan the room. 4 things that you can hear right now. 3 things that you can touch or sense. 2 things that you can smell. And 1 thing that you can taste. Okay, now we can get started. With the other clicker. You're here. You are big, and you are also little. You are here in the meeting. It's Tuesday at 10 o'clock a.m. You are doing strategy. You are doing kickoff. You are facilitating the people. You are doing so many things. You are so, so big. You are here. Tiny little dot. You might recognize that dot. That's Earth. Actually, it's a blue circle, but it's a tiny little circle called Earth. You are a mote of dust hanging on a sunbeam. How pretty is that? But just in case you didn't get it, this is you right now. 67,000 miles per second squared. Right now, we're doing that. So don't forget, throughout your days, when you're doing your project management, that you are big and you are little. We have big problems. Big problems to solve. Oh, by the way, this gets a little heavy, but then I bring it around again, so just bear with me. We're going to do this together. We have big problems. We have job automation happening. We have 45%, 47% of our jobs currently that will not exist, but we'll have new jobs. We have AI that is being coded to be racist and homophobic and all kinds of other terrible things. We have a mass surveillance state where everything, probably, I think you're all on camera right now, so amazing. And we have a lot of other things going on, including income inequality, racism, the list goes on. It's a very interesting and very scary time to be alive, and many of these problems have existed throughout the centuries, but many of these are actually just getting started, and it's overwhelming, right? This is probably the heaviest point, and I swear it gets better from here. So in 1972, there was a Club of Rome study, and it was a whole team of scientists and researchers, and they wanted to get together to actually study what is the Earth's limits to growth? Like, if we were just going to punch it up and go full bore here, like, how long could we make this work? Any guesses? How far do you think we could take this in our current scenario? The guess is 2020 to 2040. It's 2018. So that means, if you can see that handy little graph there, resources are changing, and we have like food sources going down, pollution's going up, all these things. Super, super scary, right? So you're thinking, okay, I'm a project manager, like what? I can't fix these things. I'm managing my projects, I'm managing my team, I've got other things to worry about. And you're right, you do. And I don't want to put that pressure on you. So just stay with me for a sec, okay? It's okay. We're gonna, like I said, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. Classically, when we think about this stuff, our reaction's like, I don't know. And that's a normal reaction because it is very stressful, and there's a lot of things that we literally feel powerless against. We do talk a lot about making the world a better place. Has anyone watched Silicon Valley, HBO? Okay, do you remember this episode where they go on to the stage and it's like, I think sort of like a Converge-esque version and they just sort of run all these people, we're making the world a better place. And this is my favorite, right? Because Paxos algorithms for consensus protocols is totally making the world a better place. And who knows, it might be. But we aren't converting that language in something that feels tangible and possible. And so if it's not bad enough that tech is like maybe not helping in some ways, we're doing things that are actually creating more problems. So I actually read this article last week. So in my hometown of Calgary, before I moved to the coast, there is a mall kiosk at Chinook Mall. It was like in my opinion, one of the better malls in Calgary. And they had the mall kiosk. And so someone was going in and like punching in their facial, or in their store, and I guess the thing just like quit on them. And they noticed like a Python script error. And if this is the actual photo that someone took of the script error, and if you can see it, it says, model's face analyzer, gender, inception, that face analyzer, age, inception. So they found out that they were tracking people in the mall without they had no idea that was happening. It was just going on without their knowledge. So there was, you got to think about this, like what was happening that kind of set this thing up in the first place, right? It kind of concerns me because that's not a serious thing. Like, okay, it's serious, but like in terms of seriousness, let's just take it out one more level, and we can look at something like, have you folks heard of Palantir? It's like a total dragnet. It just mines all your information, and it like pulls all of that, puts it together, and then like can scan you, and it basically knows like 50% of the US population right now. Like it knows you and your brother and like that aunt you never talked to. So yeah, like again, it can go really serious, right? So we're using technology to work against ourselves. It's so weird. Crypto bros, anyone familiar with this story? So Puerto Rico went through a very serious set of storms last year, right? And out of that, there was a group of folks that were doing like decentralization and really focusing on using like Bitcoin as a way to help bring people together, right? So they were primarily white men that went to Puerto Rico. They lived in all the fancy hotels that weren't hit by the hurricane. And I quote, I'm not even kidding, one of the guys is like, it's actually the perfect storm of opportunity for us to come in and really decentralize and make this country into the future, like a place of the future that we can all come together. And they wanted to use their voices in order to empower the people of Puerto Rico. But they didn't ask the people of Puerto Rico. They just kind of showed up, and they were doing yoga on the roof, and they were like, no, this is for you, and it just got really weird, right? And then finally, I'll leave this example. So I just read on the plane over here. This is all in the span of like days. It's pretty wild. There's productivity software out on the market now. Amazon uses it and a few other giant companies. It actually allows you to scan your hand movements to see how productive you are. So if you're taking too long to do something, it'll like have pop-ups and warnings and be like, you need to work faster. So technology, we're making it. We're making it. We're running it. We're project managing it. And it's doing this stuff. Ugh. Ugh. In 2008, it was Wall Street bankers, right? Everyone was like, boo, Wall Street bankers. Guess what? We're the villains. Holy smokes, how did this happen? We are good people. We do good things. How did this happen? So I got a chance to witness, when I still think this is like the best way of talking about this. Anil Dash did a talk like 3 years ago at Content and Design. He was talking about imagining the meeting. So Uber, they sat down and they were wanting to like really show that they cared a lot for their users. And so during a time where there was a lot of protesting and police brutality, they actually had this entire thing where they just wouldn't serve customers in New York City that were above the red line, which if you're familiar with redlining, is like a systemic oppression that wouldn't allow people of color to have mortgages, loans, live in certain places. And they're like, we're just not gonna like serve them. We're just gonna go below that line. But we really care about protesting. So you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. Put peace signs instead of cars on our app because we care, right? So it's this whole weird thing of like, imagine the meeting, and Anil Dash talked about this, like imagine the meeting, it's like the light's bad and we're sitting here and we're making these terrible decisions, and it really hit me, like it really got me thinking, and I was like, we're the ones probably that are sitting at the side of the table and we're like, I have a voice in this, and I'm literally going to have to take those cards and turn them into tasks, and we're gonna have to have success criteria outlined, and I feel like I don't have a voice, I don't have power, like what am I gonna do? How many hands up are in like not-for-profit or other sort of, oh wow, that's super cool, there's lots of us. So there is a lot of interesting changes happening, right? But before we get there, we have to actually uncover like how does this occur? So imagine the Malltech, this is that kiosk software. Like what would have probably went down in that meeting? So mall traffic is declining because it's increasingly unaffordable to live in like the cities and the suburb areas. People are kind of moving to smaller areas. Malls in general, we're just like shopping online. Everyone's going to Amazon because Amazon owns everything now. So it's hard for malls to make as much revenue as they used to. So maybe they decide, okay, there's like the CEO or whoever runs the mall is like, you know what, we really need to make sure we can get those people in the door. We gotta see where they're going. We gotta like track our metrics, right? And then someone was like, I have an idea. Maybe we should just track the people that come into the mall, and we can actually tell what we need to be doing. And I have to just ask, because I think we have a job here. What do you think the question was that we did not ask in this particular situation? That is actually a really good question. Is that legal? The question ties back to, should we do that, though? Can we is a different question. We can do anything, but should we do it? I have a very strong sense that that is a question that will save us as a species. I think if we ask should we, it'll guide a lot of our actions, and it'll make sure that we're putting our energy into the right places. So I'm going to come back to this in just a second. What this is about power, right? So when we're asking the should we's and when we're asking the why's and we're like, is this legal? This is actually us talking about our power. Now, you might not feel powerful, and you might think that this system is rigged, and you're like, screw this, I'm out. Like, I'm just gonna go and get some kittens and some chips, and I'm out. I'm done. I feel like that sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, and I feel like we all sometimes, and maybe more often than sometimes, feel that way right now, and that's normal. That is normal to feel that way when your world is on fire. But you have power in that every moment, like this, all the talks today, the stuff Dave and Michael were just talking about, like asking the tough questions, and Lena's talk asking why, all of those things you don't realize are your power. It seems like, okay, yeah, but how am I going to stop Amazon from like tracking their workers? You might not be able to do that, but what power do you have in your own situation and your own organization right now? So if we think about this in terms of alignment for the sake of alignment, like let's get all of our people on board and let's just launch this project, or just get to the finish line, or like let's make sure that the schedule is going to be on time. That works, right? You can motivate people around a common goal like that. Like, let's do it, team, we can do it. You're great, you're great, you're great. Let's do it. But what's the motivator outside of that? Like I just talked about basically doom. What's the motivator for us to do the work that we do? Maybe we have to go a little bit deeper. So I'm going to talk about alignment in a different way, probably a way you didn't expect. I'll be honest, in a way I didn't really expect, because I was like, I could just talk about alignment, or, and I wanted to bring it a little deeper, so here we go. Let's talk about impact. Have you noticed, and many of you probably have, that there is this weird inverse proportional relationship to how close you are to the project compared to how much power you have in that project. So if you're the project manager, every single day you're seeing and acting and like maintaining all of the order of the project. And then as you go a level out and a level out, maybe you add your team there, suddenly they have a say. Maybe you're adding external stakeholders if you're agency side, or client side. And if you're agency side, you actually have a whole client that has its own layers of power and impact, right? This is paramount. If you understand this, then you understand that it is your prerogative to make those things all align. And the best way to do that, yes, you need to have buy-in from the top, but you can do that internally, almost like a little mini rebellion, where you start supporting your teammates and they start supporting you, and you then bring in the stakeholders around you and start having better conversations. So another thing that you can do is understand, think about this. Every single organization has an arc. You start off, it's a startup, scrappy, no process, hire too fast, get things out, fail faster, all of it, right? And as you grow, usually you start leveling off, you get more sustainable, you can usually be more profitable at that point, unless you're not for profit, but that's also good. And then inevitably there's a decline, right? You start getting scared as an organization, you slow down, you resist change, and then you start to break. And eventually you go away, and something else happens. So think about this for yourselves right now. Like spend just that much time thinking about where is your organization, how confident do you feel? You kind of have this unique lens where you are this close to your projects, but you can also be this close to all the other things that are going on. And when you know that, that is your power. That is you knowing, okay, we're probably going to need to hire some new folks because they look grumpy, they haven't slept in a week. Hopefully that's not the case, but you can start reading the room, right? You can start reading what's going on. Also, just using your senses, just like we did right at the beginning, watch for these things, right? Watch for these reactions from your stakeholders. So can't you just, has anyone ever heard that one? Can't you just? It's like a simple thing, right? There's a breakdown or an incongruity between what they understand to be the effort and what it actually takes, right? And that causes a whole heap load of breakdowns. Or whatever you can make it work. So that's a breakdown. What kind of breakdown is that? Expectations, respect, who knows? We need more time, but we need you to hurry. Ever heard that one? Hurry up, slow down. Hurry up and wait. That one often happens too because suddenly their emergency becomes your emergency, right? And vice versa if you need to launch a product. We're not paying more for this. Again, this is a breakdown in value. Suddenly, your interpretation and their interpretation, totally different. Or, I just don't think you get it. Ugh, just a crushing one, huh? There was a film fest at Cannes, and it was called Naked at Cannes, and it was an assessment of how successfully agencies were meeting the needs of their clients. So all the agencies said, like, 76% of the time we meet their needs. Guess what the client said? They're like, 10% of the time. They don't get us at all. So what the heck? That's a total breakdown. You're not listening. Total breakdown in your hearing. Are we doing active listening? Or how are we interacting together? Or we have to change direction. That one, watch for that. If someone is talking about changing direction, it is okay to change direction. But if you started out building Project A, and now you have new faces, new expectations, new goals, new outcomes, are you building Project A? No, that's Project B. So why would you have a scope of work for A? You would probably want to have an adaptable process, eh, Dave? Make it? To be able to actually account for that change and allow that into the process. That's your power, right? Reshaping those words and reshaping those actions are your power. So here we go. I told my therapist about you. This is actually something you can buy from Mike Montero if you are so inclined. There's a meme about how it's like the enemy, right? Like our stakeholders, our clients, oh, they don't get us, and we're like, oh, can you believe this? Like there needs to be, and there is oftentimes like this, you come together over those moments of strife, right? Because you are all facing difficulties. And you often do this invisibly without any congratulations, but you sure get it when you don't follow through, right? Everyone knows when you didn't do your job. So there is this pressure. But at the same time, we have to look back and remember that people generally are doing their best, and they're operating at the capacity that they have. I had like the best session with my therapist the other day, and we were talking about my mom. Don't worry, Mom, I'm not going to say anything. But what my therapist was telling me was basically that I have to learn how to trust other people to look after themselves. And I want you to think about that one too, because I don't think I'm the only one. Like, we're really good at looking after other people, but sometimes it's because we're like, because I don't think you can do it. Think about it. These folks that we work with, our teammates, our stakeholders, our decision makers, CEOs, execs, board members, they're not the enemy, right? We know that. They're other people with needs and desires. They see the little picture details. They see the big picture details. A lot of founders and CEOs and owners, their job is to be at the helm. Like they're literally standing like this, looking off into the distance and being like, I see land. Like they're really trying to make sure that the boat gets there. And so sometimes it's hard to connect with project managers when you are on the ground. Like you're like, yeah, but also there's poop all over the deck, and I don't know what to do, right? There's a breakdown in alignment. So part of that is having like compassion and mercy for each other, but recognizing who your real enemies are, right? Your real enemies are ignorance. Like that's the scary one. Like if you didn't know, but you could have known, fear, obviously. That's big. It's the one that makes you, I should say something, but I'm not going to say anything. Or I should act, but I don't know. What are they going to say if I act? Everyone's thinking about it, right, on your team. Everyone's worried about it. Avoiding the elephant in the room. I did a workshop in London. My fly was down the entire time. Like just, things like that where you're like, ugh. And I avoided that one because I didn't know what to do. I should have handled it better, but self-doubt. That's something that's very common as well, right? And then, of course, sabotage. So most times we're not intentionally sabotaging each other, but if you work in companies where candidness, vulnerability are not priorities, then people get into a place of self-protection. And then self-protection takes over instead of actually looking out for each other. That's where you see people being like, slam, slam, I'm getting to the finish line, forget about you guys. So that's the part that I wanted to highlight in terms of watching for those things, right? Not so much the people, but the things that it makes people do. And now, my friends, I'm going to do just a little bit of a rant. Ready? So I manage a meetup in Vancouver, and I also run an apprenticeship for digital PMs. And so I get to work with a lot of great folks, and I also get to stand off to the side and listen to a lot of really cool people talk about their lives, their work, and all kinds of things like that. I was listening to a panel a couple years back, and one of the questions that we asked was, what will and this is for agencies specifically in this case, but what will your future look like in the next 2 to 5 years? And I'm not even kidding you, not one person had a clear answer. They just didn't know. And that's uncertainty at its finest, right? Like, we don't know, but generally speaking, where are we going? Do you know where you're going? Like, in your company, do you know where you're going? Do you know where your company is going? Like, you have not only the right to know, but think about this. You have the responsibility, because if you don't, what are you doing? What are you trying to get done, right? Where are you headed? So those are hard questions, but those are really, really valuable questions that we need to ask. And what I found was, in addition to not knowing where we're going, a lot of the problems came back to, I don't get PM, and I don't understand what PM processes are about. So how can people respect and allow you to have that power that you basically have earned when they don't get it, right? And that's okay for them to not get it, because think about it this way, too. A lot of folks, how do we fall into this? How many of us fell into this? A lot of us? Yeah. It sort of chooses you. It's like, you're great with people. You should do it. Yeah, and organizing, too. But yeah, so there's this lack of understanding or an incongruity, see, alignment, between what we do and then what people think we do. And I'm wondering if any of you feel that way. Do you feel like maybe people don't understand you, or maybe they don't get what you do day to day, or understand how you can influence the direction of your projects? I do sometimes. So here's the thing. We have more changes. This is actually kind of cool stuff. Scary, cool, but more on the positive side. We're flipping now. See, we're flipping. We're going all the way onto the other side. I think Colin might have talked about this a little bit, but there was a recent study, I think Gallup did it, and it was 56% of companies don't actually have the technical skills to complete their jobs right now. So that means the work we're doing right now, we're actually the most advanced people because we're in technology and we're doing technology-related things every single day. So we're more capable than a lot of, don't tell everyone I said this outside the room, but we're more capable in a lot of ways of supporting projects that are having technology hit us head on. By 2020, 50% of our population will probably be contractors. And that could be by choice because there's flexibility and freedom, but also because we aren't going to be able to have permanent positions anymore. It just isn't the way that work is going. By 2030, 47% of those jobs will be automated, as I mentioned, but we're going to have a whole slew of new cool jobs. And again, if we're ooh, what's going on out there? We're going to be more capable and inclined to be able to adapt and flow into those jobs, right? 2045, artificial intelligence will be smarter than humans. Honestly, that's all bets are off. I have no idea what's going to happen after that, so let's not even worry about that one. But the key is that, yeah, let's just ignore it. But you have some really cool things that you can do in your own organization with your cool selves that will actually help you to do these jobs. So I want you to think about answering these questions for yourselves. What is happening in the industry? I just gave you a boatload of stuff that you could probably go research. How will it affect our company, our team, me, Who are my allies? Everyone should have allies. I have allies at work, have allies at home, have allies in the bathroom. I don't even know what that means, like the soap, I guess. But anyways, have allies and just be very, very open to supporting those people. And then know who the toxic people are. There's not a lot of stats about exactly how many toxic people are in the world, but I'm guessing they're this compared to the good people that we all are. So just think about that. And then think about how you can support better products. And how do you make your company better? So those are going to be those high-level, aspirational questions you want to ask yourself. And if all of this looks goofy to you, and you're like, no way, then you write your questions, and I want to hear them. You tell me what you think they need to be. Deal? Because tiny, tiny little changes make for big, big changes. In the systems diagram, I'm not going to get a little nerdy here, but in a systems diagram, when you keep putting pressure on the same pieces, it can reinforce or it can balance those systems. And you can choose whether you want to see more of something or if you want to see less of something. And in the ways that you do that is those tiny little things, like when you are getting alignment in your meetings. Those are going to help make bigger shifts in companies because it creates accountability and it breaks down those misalignments. But in order to do this, we need a roadmap. So this is not going to be a roadmap, but it's going to help you. I think that our job collectively here is to build that roadmap together. Anyone heard oh, Joe, he just wasn't a fit. Jane, she just, we couldn't have beers. It's just, right? This is a thing that people say at companies, and then they're like, I can't hire her. And it's wait a minute. We know there's so much research out that says that inclusive teams make better teams, right? And so we're like, okay, but I'm a project manager. How am I going to make sure that I can actually make a more inclusive team? I'm not sure if that question has been answered yet, but I'm going to do my very, very best. How many of you here do resourcing? How many of you here, of the folks that do resourcing, have some say in contractor hiring or, looking for the skills that you need on your projects? Okay, all your hands, think of this. You have power to be like, you know what we need is people who can do the skills that are required on the project that don't look like us, think like us, and act like us. I think that would be pretty cool. And that's something that you can do. It's going to be something that you have to put more effort into because you aren't just going to be able to be like, oh, you didn't like the same beer as me. But you have a responsibility to do that. And you have the power to do it. And that's why it's so cool. This makes you a really strong character, and it also makes your teams better. The other thing, too, is that if you needed to, you could estimate into your budgets a little more time for, say, mentorship or training so that you could actually ensure that people on your team have additional skills so that they can all work together and we can bring in more disparate voices at the table, right? So that's something you would totally do. That's very, very project managey, right? Another thing, too, and has anyone ever heard this saying, nothing about us without us? It's this idea that we shouldn't be building products if we're not including the right voices on our teams, right? And in the products, in the actual outputs that we're making, right? We don't want to build something for people if we don't make sure that they can speak to, that this is not useful to me at all. So if you think about it, if you can involve those folks right from the get-go, it's great when you have them on your team, and if not, then maybe consider don't build the thing. Or if you're going to build the thing, make sure you ask and make sure you get feedback all the way through the process, not just at the end when you're already done. Did it work? No? Okay. No. Make sure you go back and ask. I would highly recommend, if you can, go to a printer, print this, and post it. And then talk about it all the time, because people are going to be like, what does that mean? And I think in a smaller way, too, nothing about us without us. I mean, not to co-opt it, because don't co-opt it, but also you can take this and think about it in terms of we don't want to talk about anyone who isn't already available to have their voice at the table, right? Don't make decisions on behalf of other people, right? That's an easy one. We can do that. Okay, better working conditions. You're like, I am not able to change the lighting. I cannot prevent us from having that open office space. There's nothing I can do. But you can. There's some things you can do. If if you could calculate, here's a little context. Research is saying that we should be moving to a 4-day work week instead of the 5-day work week, because again, we just don't have enough work to do. We're actually like just spinning our wheels now. Productivity is like flattened out at, I think, 14% in America, 21% in Japan, and it's not gonna get any higher. We just have like lost our ability to do more efficient work. It's the system. We've got to change our physics now. But if we know that we have to go to a 4-day work week, you're like, okay, well, how the heck am I going to convince my boss to go to a 4-day work week? For some of us, this might not be possible. You might be working in healthcare. Probably don't want to do that to them. That's not very nice. But if you were going to calculate it, could you not figure out what the cost would be that you would need to be able to make up in terms of revenue, and then make a plan for how you would either, if you were agency side, bill more efficiently, or if you were internal, like looking at structuring your day differently so that you're just focused or more productive. Maybe you get rid of some meetings, or you change your process, you do a hypothesis, and you keep adapting. That's something you can do. Imagine if you didn't have to work Friday. Who wants to work Friday anyway? I don't. You can do this. Toxicity. So we mentioned it. Are there toxic people on your projects? Again, there's not a high volume of high performers. This is what they're called, high performers. We actually, this is a hard truth. Sometimes we're the toxic people because we want to do such a great job all the time. And we have such a high bar. So sometimes nobody can even climb that bar. So if we feel like there are people who are what we call like lone wolves, if they go in, if they're firefighters and they can save the world, they get sent into our projects to fix things, often, not always, sometimes they're just great people, but sometimes that is a toxic behavior because it creates an unattainable goal. And it sets up a situation where no one will ever be able to do the same kind of work and efficiency. And it also undermines the team. And there's a couple other things that it does too. And it basically just makes it very difficult for us to have healthy team dynamics. So one thing you can do as a project manager, this one's not mine, but our facilitator, workshop facilitator, Marshall, he mentioned this. I was like, this is gold. I'm borrowing it. Let's talk about the way we talk to each other. So if you create a situation in your current space, in your organization, where it becomes very uncomfortable for someone who's toxic to operate, think about that. What does that look like? Open, transparent, blameless, calling people out with candid reactions. You're going to actually shut down that toxic behavior faster than trying to be like, boss, like we really need to get rid of this person because they're just like really hurting the team. Because guess what? People overlook their toxicity on purpose because they're like, oh, but they can go in and they can just get work done. The truth is, I looked this up. So GE did a study, and the average cost is $12,500 per toxic employee in turnover costs. The benefit is like $5,000 because they worked faster that one time. But it also like causes your baselines to be way off, right? Like they're just not even reasonable. So that is another thing that you can do that's going to make your team a lot happier. Maybe you can start taking Fridays off because the toxic person is gone. Think about it. And then, of course, should we? So the only reason that companies are building these ridiculous technologies is because we let them. In our meetings, the tiny things that we do are going to have a major impact, right? We are going to be able to say no, right? We exercise our ability to say no. We exercise our ability to question, to ask this question of should we, and that will help us very, very slowly just shift that dynamic just slightly, just enough to start making a dent. And the thing is you're not doing this on your own. You get your whole team to help. Funnest game ever, bring a red flag into your meetings, and then wave it when someone says something that's like, should we be talking about this? But make it so that everybody can wave a red flag. Don't just be the one person. No one's going to like you. We're actually thinking about that. Yeah. So yeah, think about this question every single time. And then the other thing that I really, really love is the idea of punching up. We should never punch down, right? Down is like, those are our folks, those are our people, our teammates, and like contractors, and we're all in this together, and like, there's like 1% of people that are really, really rich, and the rest of us are just like, I don't want to work, but I gotta work, so here we go, let's do this thing, right? So instead of punching down and trying to sabotage each other and undermine each other, and I'm not saying that any of us do that, but there's just this tendency just to be like, right? We're trying to cling for air. We can punch up at the institutions, right? We can say that is not cool, and I'm going to say something. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say something. Because really, what this all comes back to is alignment, right? And alignment, for the sake of alignment, like let's get this thing launched, is fine. And you are doing a tremendous job of that. So all we're asking today is just a little bit more. Because alignment is when everyone is pulling in the same direction, fighting for the same things, and uniting for the same purpose. And you just have to decide what that thing is for you, for the people you work with, and for the company. So let's talk about you for just a minute. You have two jobs. You have the job of building the right thing with your team. And often this comes back to setting the right outcomes, the right goals, making sure that there's like a quality process from start to finish. Everyone's in it together. And you also have build that thing right? So you test it, make sure it works. There's no broken pieces falling off. That's what the surface level means. But I want to take this up a notch. Imagine if build the right thing was actually more about things that could change the future of our technology, right? Like when we say build the right thing, we're building things that people need because we asked them, not because we're like, don't you just want to have this amazing puzzle that I made? I don't know, puzzle. Obviously, I didn't ask before I said that. So, and then building that thing right is, choosing to work with others that can really push our limits, push us more into ethical organizations, including more voices at the table, and then just like really using that power to reject ideas that take us further away from that. Let's talk about power now. Your power, your quiet power. This is that power that you have every single day. Everyone take 2 fingers, find your carotid artery on your neck. It's the thing where it pumps and there's blood and stuff, not coming out, just in your body. Just put your fingers there. Can you all feel your pulse? I hope so, because if not, we probably should get you to medical attention. Keep your finger there for just a second. That thing works for you all day, every day, without fail, most of your life. Be good to it. It is silent, for the most part. Maybe you hear it once in a while, like me right now. But otherwise, it's pretty quiet. But it's pretty powerful, too, right? It's just doing its thing. It's a network. Working through the body, getting things aligned, sending signals, making clarity out of all of the noise. Interesting. You have that power. You can redirect people's focus. You can calm them down. You can ask the tough questions. That power is yours right now. You don't have to ask for it. You don't have to take it. Just use it. Let's do this. Because you are probably going to be the person that is the most comfortable being uncomfortable, right? All day long, you're like, whew, work through this mess. This is fun. And you get to help other people work through their discomfort as well, right? If you're doing the kickoff meetings, you're like, all right, everyone, icebreakers. Everyone introduce yourself. We're going to do a fun game. Everyone else is like, oh, this is so hard. But you're making it easier for them. And that's because of your quiet power. You just do this by nature. And then maybe you need to go have a nap and some chips afterwards. That's fine, too. But you have to ask a few questions of yourself. And I do want you to think about this. Think about this as you put your fingers on your neck. You don't have to do it again. But do you trust yourself? Do you? There are days when I do, and there are days when I don't. And the days when I don't, I'm very lonely. I'm very sad. But the days when I do, it's because I know, even if I'm standing up on stage and being a goofball, that you want me to be happy, and you want to be here for me, and you want me to be able to do this so that you can share in this with me, right? I know that you're on my side. And I need that. And I can offer that to you, too. I can be on your side, and we can do this together. And that's special. Do you trust yourself? Could you talk about it if you didn't? We just had this really cool session where we got to sit down and basically spill our guts about our vulnerabilities, a thing that we, quote, suck at, and then work through it. And I had a really beautiful conversation with somebody who just talked about what they wanted to do, and it involved a pretty neat career change. Could you talk about it? These people are here for you. We are all in this together. Are you able to do your best work? Think about your job description. Has anyone looked at that recently? Are you doing that and then 3 other jobs? Sometimes that happens. Or are you just striking out some of them and be like, I have no idea. This is just there when I got hired and I'm still doing it, right? This is a reality because, again, not a lot of folks understand. What is a project manager? Secretary? You just book the meetings? This is part of an education process, right? This is actually a fun one that we get to take on. We're going to teach our teams a little bit more about project management because I like to believe that it's not just a role that we have, right? We can be a project manager, that can be your title, but in addition, you wear the hat, right? I think, was it Brett was saying this? Is people who do the tasks of running a project, right? We are all here because that's what we do. And I think that's something we share, and it's pretty cool. So ask yourself this question next. Why are you a project manager? Really, for sure, really, really. I have a hunch that if everything fell apart and things got really, really nasty in the world, that we would actually be the ones that are going around and be all right, here, muster zone, and we're fixing things by getting, I'm actually thinking I should start practicing my pull-ups because I'm I'm gonna have to scale over the side of a dinghy, and I just can't right now. So we could do this. We probably have to work out a little bit, but imagine the power that you have in helping people to get things done, and you're so calm. You're just so calm about it, right? That's a power. Nobody else has that. Other people who have that are detached, completely detached from reality. So we have this, and we're supposed to be connected. That's really cool stuff. And what is your job, really? So why are you a project manager? But then what is your real job? And it is to manage projects, but that's just this much. Think about it. If suddenly there just were no people, and you were just managing a project, and there was a robot, and you're hey, Bob, and he's hey, Joe. That's boring. That's not why we're here, right? It's not about that. We're trying to smooth all of this out for people, because it's getting weird, you guys. It's so weird. We're doing our best. And I love that, because I actually think that that's what makes me smile inside, thinking about, my mom still has no idea what I do. I try to explain projects. It's fine. But she knows that, if her car broke down, I would Google it. There's just so much cool stuff that she knows that I can do as a result of the skills that we bring to the table. So here's a thought. Freedom is the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. Okay. You have that. You have that power, the responsibility, and the strength to do it. And it's your job. It is actually what you get paid to do many, many times. You get paid to do other things, hopefully. But this is a big part of it, providing the constraints and guiding people along the path. So one small example. Maybe you have a little script that you go back to, and you actually bring this one back to your stakeholders. This one can help. This is hard, but I need your help. In order for this direction to work, we have to focus on the right things. Can you help me by prioritizing what's important to you? You don't always have to say the hard no. You can actually get them to say the no for you by eliminating all the excess stuff, right? It's easier that way. You just isn't there a Bruce Lee thing where it's you use the power of the punch to go through? I forget. Anyway, it's something about that, and it's just energy lining up. We're just doing some alignment. Because your real job is being a lovable hard ass, right? And that means that people love you, and you can still be very firm with your no's, or your not yet's, and your maybes, right? You can do that. You're allowed to do that. You all have permission, not from me, just from the universe of PM has given you that permission to do that. So own that. That's yours. Nobody else even wants that job. Are you an ally, right? We already talked a little bit about what it means to have allies and be an ally. In Canada, there was a study done recently, and they wanted to find out for Indigenous youth at risk, what was the single biggest factor in their resiliency? You're never going to believe it. One person in their lives consistently would be there. One person out of who knows how many people interacted with them over the course of their young adult life. Are you that person? Could you be that person to your teammates, to the decision makers on your projects? I want you to think about that. That is something so, so unique and so powerful. You get to walk away and know that you were there. not just for the budgets and the timelines, right? Maybe you even have a script for that. Maybe you even say to them, you know, if you have someone who's shy and maybe they don't want to speak up at your meeting, maybe you say, aside, before the meeting, your voice is really important. Can you talk about that idea that you had? I'm going to leave some space for that. Because the loudest voice in the room shouldn't be the only one that people listen to, right? And you have the power to make sure that that's even by just making sure everyone gets a chance. That's cool. If that happened, I bet you anything, Chinook Mall would not have facial recognition algorithms. Like, I'm pretty sure someone would have been like, listen, I'm the developer, and I'm going to code this so it breaks on purpose. That was a really bad idea. I don't think we should do it. And then, okay, imposter syndrome. So I'm going to go a little bit anti-conventional here. Yeah, I'm going to fight conventional wisdom. So a lot of people talk about like imposter syndrome, and it's like, oh no, it's okay, we all have this, and it's fine. But imposter syndrome is pretending to be somebody else or something else or have things that you don't have, right? So I really want to get honest up in here a little bit, just a bit, and I want to think about this for a second. So if you're feeling like I'm an imposter, I'm not in the right job, I'm not in the right position, what are the things that are making you feel that way? Is it maybe that there could be potentially a deficit in the knowledge or skills that you need in order to feel confident? Instead of just being like, oh, well, we're all imposters. What if there was a way for you to feel less like that? What's your responsibility to go chasing after the knowledge and the wisdom as lifelong learners that this is the career path that we've chosen? That's okay too, right? We're allowed to do that. So let's step back for a second. We're wrapping this up. Hopefully you're feeling more like optimistic by now, right? Like we got through the doom and gloom and now you're like, you're so powerful, woo, 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 woo. Okay, big picture. You already have the skills of the future. It's pretty amazing. No, like seriously, you already have the skills. So World Economic Forum did a study 2020, they wanted to find out what skills would you need to succeed, and this was just in general. Like in life, to have a job, what skills do you need? Do you see these skills? Do you recognize this stuff here? You have these things. I honestly don't know what cognitive flexibility is, but I think you have it too. Pretty sure. Come and talk to me later. We can work it out together. So it's cool, right? You're set up. You're like in the perfect position to make these kinds of changes, like superbly. Very good. Because here's the thing, we're not doing brain surgery, right? Like the whole joke is like, don't take your job too seriously, we're not doing brain surgery. But we're gonna be, and like the technology we're building is probably gonna allow robots to do surgery on our brains, and that's a serious thing. So we kind of have to take like all of this wisdom and all of this knowledge that we've accrued over the time and figure out like, how are we gonna use it now, right? All this cool power that we have all the time, right? All the time. How are we gonna use it? You are literally leading the projects of tomorrow. And you're setting down what we call the infrastructure for the new world. This one's cool, because power doesn't actually exist in the institutions or the large corporations or the state, right? It's in the networks. It's in the pieces that flow between. That's where the power is to shift and make huge, sweeping changes. And you, my friends, are the node. You are the nucleus in your projects. You are the one person who touches every other piece of that project, every other person on that project. You are the interface. You have the power. You are the hero in this story. You might not feel like it right now, but trust me, this job growth is like 33% in our industry. It is becoming increasingly important. Because as machines get smarter and they start automating some of the stuff we just don't want to do anyway, we need to be able to continue to have these really close, really important relationships with other human beings. That's what we're here to do. And we can do that. We make small nudges in our projects, in the meetings that we have, in the interactions we have with our stakeholders. We understand the power dynamic. We understand where we are in the arc of the organizational structure. We understand what our commitment and our responsibility is to get people playing nicely, but also to be building things that don't hurt us as a people. That's your power. You're literally inventing the future. I know this is getting lofty now. You're like, okay, come on now. I'm a project manager. But think about this. Every task that you put into Jira is you cementing the ghost of the future. You're making that future. You're laying it down, documenting it. That's power. And we need you. We maybe have 10, maybe 100 years on this planet. I know that is some real shit. But it's true. Rachel said it, I'm sorry. But we're here together. We're here together, and I really love you. I do. I hardly know some of you, but I feel like being in this room and committing to the things that we do every day puts us in a really unique position to be there for one another. And I will be there for you for sure. You are big. You're little. You are here in the meeting. And you are here, a tiny speck of dust hanging on a sunbeam. Carl Sagan he's my hero. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceit than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Isn't that cool? Jeez. I want you to think about this for 1 second. Actually, more than a second. What will you change? If you could just pick one thing. It could be one thing for yourself. It could be one thing for your team. One thing for your company. I'm going to cement this now. This is the exciting part. Are you ready? In Canada, in the 1920s, there was, it was called the Iron Ring Ceremony, and this was for engineers, and it's very special. You have to go through the entire program, and then you have this opportunity, if you want, to do an oath. And in the oath swearing, what you would do is they would slide a ring onto your pinky finger, and it was always on your dominant writing hand. So every time you would drag your ring across the paper, it would remind you that you were here to do an ethical job. You were here to support the people. And it was a big commitment. And so I was thinking about that, and Anil Dash said it best, when he's talking about Imagine the Meeting, he's like, we have all of these standards in medicine and legal practice and traffic control. We've got a lot of standards for traffic. Do we have standards for project management that make us ethical, that make us build products and support teams in a way that makes sure that we're not building things that hurt people? I would like us to do something here. I would like for you, if you can and are able, and you want to stand up and raise your pinky fingers and just hold the pinky finger of the person next to you. I want to see if we can make a chain. So I know. Trust me, this is gonna be worth it. I want to see if we can make a chain, and I want to see how far that chain can go. And then we're gonna all swear the same thing, and then we'll talk about what this means, all right? Pinky swear. It's good. I love that people are reaching across the aisles. This is amazing. This is pretty glorious from my perspective. You're amazing. I would love for someone to take a photo. I would also love if together, so you have your one thing in your brain, right? Right now, in unison, let's make some noise and just say the one thing out loud that you want to change. Just yell it out. Go. Yeah, I didn't hear any of that. But here's the thing. Our job is to convert that noise into a signal, right? So you have a whole day and a half. That's your job now. You're going to turn whatever this is for you into something bigger. Because this is the movement, this is the network, and this is how we make change together. This is your commitment. These folks have been through some of the darkest days they have ever experienced, and you share that with them. That's pretty special. And you're going to bring them up to the light, and they're going to bring you there too. So I solemnly swear, repeat after me, I solemnly swear, to use my power, for good. Thank you.